Politics now. Let's go back to the ANC Gauteng conference taking place in Birchwood in Ekurhuleni. The party is continuing its conference this weekend after it was unable to conclude it 2 weeks ago. Let me take you to eNCA's Lindokuhle Xulu, who is tracking that story. Lindo, since you and I spoke, part of the conversation that I'm picking up is something of disappointment among some ANC Gauteng activists that they would have hoped that the National Executive Committee of the ANC would have taken leadership in resolving this issue around Ekurhuleni, the conference that happened a good 3-4 weeks ago in Ekurhuleni, but that remains unresolved. And that lack of resolution is coming back to bite the conference where you are.
The long and short of it, Tulas, is that the Gauteng province brought a problem, as that is, of course, by the doing of the NEC. They brought a problem to this particular conference, that is the 14th conference of the ANC in Gauteng. You know, it's funny that during the week when they were telling us about the readiness to resume this conference, one Pulemabe was telling us, as he usually does, that they do not have issues and that perhaps the media is seemingly trying to push other interests when we ask about issues of saying that you've been interdicted, you've dealt with that matter, what is the status of that? But more than anything, the issue they face right now is the issue of Ekurhuleni. We've asked about that to say that what has the PEC done as far as the top 5 that's been elected to try and sort out this issue, but they themselves have told us that there is no issue here. Media is just creating headlines and all of that, and lo and behold, today we are held up by that particular issue that we've been raising. And I can tell you that it is a conundrum that has been created by the NEC of the ANC, because this was escalated to them after that regional conference of Ekurhuleni, as you rightfully said, and they themselves, after having an 11th hour meeting before the commencement of this particular conference just last month, they decided that the new NEC would in fact be the one now to deal and sort out these issues of the quarantine votes in Ekurhuleni. The quarantine votes in Ekurhuleni means that even those branch delegates that are coming to this conference in Gauteng are also quarantined. So that is the issue here that we have. And I can tell you that as much as they say it's not an issue, we've saw something quite adverse to that. A lot of the delegates arguing and debating robustly. Sometimes even I saw one of the delegates throwing a container, a water bottle to another one because of how heated that debate was. And I can tell you that this will be an issue for quite some time. The resolutions they've taken right now is that after that taking many inputs from the crowd, of delegates, what they did was essentially to adjourn this. They're saying that the steering committee must then go and reconvene. They're saying that they're going to need about an hour and a half to try and deal with this solution. But they are still trying to save this conference. And one of the things they are trying to do right now is to divert and go to those commissions that are going to be talking about a whole range of issues. So they're saying that while they try to decide on the issue of these particular quarantined votes, which are stopping the nomination as well as the election of additional members of the PEC, they say that some delegates must now go into those plenaries, must now discuss some of the important details and documents of the ANC in terms of their way forward here. But I can tell you that before that, there was a heated moment. And in fact, I was quite surprised to see one of the people that had stood up to raise a point there, that is Lebogang Maile, who was contesting for the position of chairperson. And he was basically saying that if these votes are opened up, then it means that the entire process, that includes the provincial perspective of things, must in fact start afresh. Take a listen and take a look at just how heated and some of the contents that were coming out from some of those debates that were coming. Take a listen to Lebogang Maile actually giving his input to chairperson Panyaza Lesufi.
Conference had an opportunity to deal with the issue of credentials, and we adopted credentials. We then had a process of voting for the top 5, and the elections outcomes were announced. And when we were in conference, we then proceeded with the process of nominating for the additionals. And that's where we are. There's a comrade in the morning who was trying to raise an issue about the conference program. The chair responded properly, and the chair said, this is a continuation, we're not starting afresh. So, Comrade Chair, I just want to understand, how does this issue arise of Ekurhuleni? Because if it arises, it means it has got implications for the credentials of the conference. And procedurally, in terms of the constitution, to adopt credentials, you at least need 2/3 majority of conference. So if these comrades want us to discuss that issue of Ekurhuleni, we don't have a problem. The procedure must be that, Chair, you must divide the House. 2/3 majority when you deal with credit. No, don't howl, comrades. Don't howl.
No shouting, comrades.
So procedurally, if we were to discuss or reopen the credentials, you need 2/3 of conference to agree that we reopen credentials. And when we reopen credentials, it has got implications for everything, including that elected leadership. It means we must start again. Thank you very much.
Lindo, I can't help but be struck by the fact that the ball having been passed to the National Executive Committee, the highest decision-making body of the ANC, between conferences, it was passed back to the newly elected leadership in Gauteng, with the result that you're now sitting there with Panyaza Lesufi, who contested against and won against Lebogang Maile, now on opposite ends, almost like, you know, the new top 5 leadership. It's not even the entirety of the leadership, just the top 5 now, have to try and navigate to the satisfaction of the various interests. What a mess.
A mess indeed, Tulas, and I can tell you that Lebogang Maile is one of the people that raised issues. In fact, Panyaza Lesufi at a time took about 10 hands per 10 and then tried to take another 10 hands. So it was quite a number of people, over 50, raising many of these issues. Of course, it was butting, arguments, some saying that let's proceed with conference credentials were adopted as such the last time and therefore we must continue in this way. But others are saying that no, the issue of Ekurhuleni means that then this particular process was not democratic because those that were sent by branches from Ekurhuleni to come and vote here are not exercising that democratic process on behalf of the branches that had elected them to come and represent them in this particular conference. So it's quite a thorny issue, and I can tell you from some of the hands that we've been listening to, it's not going to be an easy process to try and navigate through this particular conundrum, again created by the highest body decision making, and that is the ANC. In terms of conferences, they brought it back to the PEC. The PEC is not even at its full complement, but now it has to, through a steering committee that includes NEC delegates or the delegation from the NEC, try and find a solution of making sure that these delegates, about 1,000 or so of them, are going to accept and move forward. But as far as you've seen, the conversations have been robust, they've been emotional, and it's not something that's going to be easy. So while they are trying to save the conference by saying that while this issue is being sorted out, while they take an hour and a half to try and find solutions through the steering committee, I can tell you that the commissions are continuing, but it is going to remain an issue because they themselves and at the hands of the NEC brought a problem into this particular conference. It's exactly the reason why we are here, and that it didn't conclude at the weekend. It was supposed to have concluded because they had to deal with it first, with the NEC sleeping at around 4 a.m. before the conference, and then their decision was to say we're handing it over to the new PEC. But I can tell you some of the people, just very quickly, told us that it's quite sad that the very same people that are elected through this particular mess are the ones that are now going to be dealing with this, while they have their own interest in terms of what the outcome of these results might mean for the elected PEC that we have seen. So it's a very contentious issue here, but it's a matter of the steering committee in an hour or so now, because it has been about 45 minutes, in an hour or so coming back and reporting back in terms of what their solution is. It's going to be a tough task in terms of making sure that they satisfy at least a majority of the House.
Well, let's see if the situation changes in about an hour or so, as you say, Lindo. That's eNCA's Lindokuhle Xulu there reporting to us from Take Two, as it was the sequel of the Gauteng elective conference of the ANC. They only succeeded in electing the top 5 leaders. Now need the full complement. If I know my ANC structures, should be about 30 thereabouts in total, the Provincial Executive Committee. And if I'm getting it wrong, I do apologize. But it is that structure, the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC, that is meant to be elected, as well as conclude discussions around policy. But as Lindo is telling us, back to that issue that led to the delays the first time around, issues of credentials, as well as the controversies around the elective conference that took place in Ekurhuleni a few weeks ago, that remains unresolved.